Saitama is the strongest human that has ever walked the face of the earth. In fact, he's so powerful that he removed his limiter and ascended. That's right, he's not even human anymore. He's evolved past that title. In spite of this, the world still treats him like a bald, broke bum. He has the power to one-shot anyone, but gets none of the credit for it. At least that's the case most of the time. Because as time goes on, more and more eyes are beginning to see the truth, including some of the most powerful heroes in the world. Starting with the supposed most powerful, the man who actually gets all the credit for Saitama's achievements, King-sama. Even before he crossed paths with Saitama properly, King was living what he considered a normal life, pretending to fight monsters in public, then going home to sink hours into idle dating sims like the gooner he truly is. But everything changed the day a random bald guy casually walked into King's apartment from the window despite being several stories up. That bald guy was of course Saitama. He wasn't there to fight or accuse King of his fraudulent behavior or anything, he simply wanted to ask why he abandoned the fight against Machine God G5. You see, Saitama hoped that perhaps King was just too strong and didn't find the fun in battling weak opponents anymore, just like him. But before King could waffle his way through an excuse, like always, fate stepped in. A gigantic monster crashed into the apartment, forcing King into full panic mode. Bro pissed himself, convinced he was gonna die, and that this clueless bald guy was gonna die with him. But after one swift, single punch, King then realized the truth. Saitama had been the reason he had a career and life to begin with. From Vaccine Man to the day he received his iconic scar, all of those achievements that the Hero Association credited to King truly belonged to Saitama. But even after that revelation, Saitama didn't judge him. He simply told King to lock in if he wanted to become strong. And I mean, King tried. Bless him, he really did. But my guy can barely get through a press up without being put down to 1 HP. Nonetheless, the two did develop one of the most genuine friendships in the entire series. I mean it when I say everyone deserves a friend like King, as he helped show Saitama his true self. The fact that actually, for all his insane physical strength, he was still an anxious, flawed, and painfully human, no matter how much he's biologically evolved past that. And so with that realization, Saitama found in King someone who grounded him, challenged him, and introduced him to one of the only things that still brings him joy, and most importantly, a challenge: video games. But of course, the true moment of peak fiction between these two is a moment which not only showcases the respect and care King has for Saitama, but I also think is the moment the Caped Baldy's respect for him reaches a new level as well, as Saitama was severely depressed to the point where literally nothing in life gave him any meaning anymore, which is not a good thing, by the way. We saw that when Saitama loses all will to live, he has a side to him that literally feels like annihilating the entire planet, and I sure as hell don't doubt that he can do that. Thankfully though, King, despite being terrified of literally everything, told Saitama that power alone wasn't enough. That tunnel visioning on strength would never help him reach his full potential. To become the ultimate hero, Saitama needed to reconnect with his humanity. He needed to stop viewing life as a chore and instead start, well, living it. And so whilst King wasn't strong physically, it was in that moment that he showed emotional insight far beyond what Saitama was capable of alone. Then in typical King fashion, he issued the perfect kind of challenge to the Caped Baldy, a video game handicap match. Something Saitama couldn't brute force his way to a dub in, and it worked. It snapped Saitama out of his emotional fog because for once he wasn't limitless, but just a regular, standard human again. And that is why King's respect for Saitama is so powerful. He doesn't admire just the god tier level strength, but he also respects the journey Saitama has been on and is on to get his life back on track. Amai Mask, on the other hand, is the total opposite. He always presented himself as this perfect, elegant, goated hero. It's why, despite his strength, he camped at the top of A-class, gatekeeping those who don't deserve it it from reaching the S-class. He believes that the title of hero should only belong to those who can embody both strength and beauty. And whilst he often comes across as arrogant or unnecessarily harsh, the truth is that he takes his job more seriously than almost anyone else. In a way, he is a great hero, but not for the right reasons. Or at least not until Saitama gets involved. Because Amai Mask first became interested in the Caped Baldy after the Deep Sea King incident, where he reviewed the footage of the monster being obliterated in a single punch. It was as if he had been waiting his whole life for someone like Saitama to spawn in, someone who embodied overwhelming power, someone who could actually lead the world into a new era. But eventually this admiration for Saitama became a bit of an obsession, a dream even. He judged everyone to his standard, and after Saitama defeated Garou and saved the world, he began to envision a future where Saitama could finally start a new generation of heroes, ultimately becoming a hero more important than any S-class, a true superhero. But this is also where Amai Mask's flawed vision of what makes a real hero kicked in. It wasn't enough that Saitama had reached a level of strength that put him above any human in history, he had to look the part as well. And I mean, Saitama with his Timu-esque looking supersuit wasn't really cutting it. Thus, Amai Mask put him into a PR boot camp. He believed that Saitama needed aura, and in order to do that, he had to fix his outfit, his speech, his posture, get a hair transplant, all these things that actually don't mean a thing. But for Amai Mask, they do. Because you see, he eventually revealed the truth that he was actually a monster. His handsome body was nothing more than a disguise. For years, he had been suppressing his true monstrous form to maintain the public's love. But the moment this was exposed, the people that had adored him just moments before now hated him, purely because of his appearance. The fact that he wasn't actually as perfect and flawless as his PR suggested was enough to ruin Amai Mask's entire life, even though he only revealed his true form to finally do something truly heroic for once, to save the people that now hated him, risking everything. In spite of that though, Saitama quite literally saved his life. He took one look at Amai Mask and thought that he was cooler than ever before, and so he took him out of the public eye and to safety. That was the moment that Amai Mask understood that Saitama was right. PR doesn't make a hero special, their actions do. Thus, in the webcomic, when the entire world was on the brink of destruction from an army of killer robots and cyborgs, Amai Mask returned to the battlefield. This time, not taking the form of what he thought the world wanted to see, but what they needed to. From saving a young kid and his granny from certain death by transforming into his favourite fictional superhero, to even fighting in his true form. The respect Amai Mask had for Saitama truly did birth a superhero. Amai Mask just never expected that he would be that hero. But of course, Amai Mask and Saitama aren't the only heroes that embody what it means to truly be one, as Mumen Rider is another hero that ticks that box and respects Saitama because of it. You see, during the Deep Sea King arc, Mumen Rider delivered one of the rawest, most emotional moments in the entire series. He rode into battle knowing that he was hopelessly outmatched. He knew he would lose, and he even knew that he would probably die. But bro locked in anyway, declaring that justice will prevail. And so, whilst he might not have the strength of Saitama, he for sure does have the same unbreakable human will. So when the Caped Baldy stepped in and casually deleted Deep Sea King with a single punch, Mumen Rider accepted the truth that Saitama is a hero far beyond what most of the world realized. The two even shared ramen together, where Mumen gave Saitama a lift home on his bike. It was one of the first genuine friendships Saitama ever formed, built on mutual respect, similar to King. Their bond only strengthened over time though, as when Mumen Rider was hospitalized by Garou, Saitama not only visited him, he gave him a banana. Listen, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but that is a true sign of shared respect when it comes to the Baldy. I mean, who knows, he might have even paid full price for that banana. Can you believe that? But anyway, get this right, because the two even went to the same school, though neither of them actually remember. Nonetheless, the fact that they not only share a background, but also a view of justice is key for what happens in the webcomic for Mumen Rider, as he takes that respect for Saitama and straight up replicates him. Because when Mumen Rider joins the Neo Heroes, he unlocks a power that puts him on the level of the S-Class heroes. How? You should know by now. He drank Gamer-Sops. In fact, if you want your own crazy-ass power-up like Mumen Rider gets, you can. Head to Gamer-Sops and enjoy yourself the best tasting drink on the market that gives you the energy you need to lock in, whilst also being low in calories. I mean, come on. It's a win-win, and if you use code ABD, you can enjoy yourself a nice little discount as well, giving you the power of the new Mumen Rider, as he actually defeats a demon-level monster in one shot, paralleling the moment Saitama killed Deep Sea King. Can you believe it? Our GOAT has gone and done it, ladies and gentlemen. Hats off to him. And yet, the craziest moment was actually yet to come. You see, he fought Suiryu, who was juiced up by a corrupted battlesuit far beyond the strength of most S-Class heroes. Yet Mumen Rider stood his ground and actually stepped in to save Fubuki and Psychos. Yes, that Psychos. Furthermore, he actually helped save Suiryu from the Neo Hero's corrupt battlesuit. He truly is a hero who saves people just because it's the right thing to do, like Saitama. I mean, some people might even consider him a better hero than the likes of Blast. Because despite being the Hero Association's untouchable #1, he is someone who only intervenes when the Earth is staring down a god-level extinction threat. That's due to the fact that he's out there traveling between dimensions in a total war against God, and has been for the last 20 years, to the point that he doesn't even visit his own son. But more on him soon. Because nonetheless, during the Garou crisis, as God made his move, Blast finally stepped in, facing off against Cosmic Fear Garou. Yet despite him being a limitless being possessed by a 5th dimensional entity capable of warping space and unleashing lethal cosmic radiation capable of killing every S-Class hero, that wasn't the thing that shocked Blast the most that day. What truly shocked him was Saitama. You see, after Garou killed Genos, Saitama's rage overflowed in a way the universe wasn't prepared for. He unleashed a punch so catastrophic that Blast had to redirect it across space-time just to prevent the Earth from being destroyed. And even then he could barely contain the shockwaves. Blast's intergalactic crew of tomfoolery even recognized Saitama's true power in that moment, shocked to see that someone like him even existed. In spite of this, the Caped Baldy was forced to rewind time, meaning that Blast couldn't remember the full extent of the level that he reached. That being said, it wouldn't be long before he got a sneak peek again, because when he was tracking down his former partner, Empty Void, the ninja leader, who had been chosen and corrupted as one of God's vessels, Blast arrived only to discover that Saitama had already off-screened his ass. Bear in mind that this was someone who, even before accepting God's power, was Blast's equal, yet Saitama just defeated him by accident. That alone planted the seed of respect in Blast's mind, because Garou was one thing, but he'd witnessed Saitama now free 2 people from God's power, something that even Blast himself couldn't do, confirming his title as the fist that turned against God. But things truly became undeniable when Blast and Void found one of God's divine beasts, his very own personal god dogs, dead. The culprit, of course, being Saitama. And that's why Blast then did the unthinkable. He recognized and respected Saitama's power to the point that he recruited him. That's right. He straight up admits that they would not be able to defeat God in the final fight without his help, and so when the time comes, Blast will return to seek Saitama's strength. And it's crazy to think that, like I said, Blast doesn't even remember everything that happened in outer space between Garou and Saitama. Thankfully though, there is someone, and that person is someone who perhaps respects Saitama a bit too much, to the point where glazing doesn't even seem to cut it. I'm of course talking about Genos. He was the very first hero to ever realize that Saitama wasn't just strong, but built different, thus forced himself to become his disciple, all because of a mosquito. You guys know the one. Back when Genos was locked in a brutal fight against Mosquito Girl, he was prepared to blow up his own core. Not gonna lie, I've come to realize that Genos might just be One Punch Man's own Megami, ready to blow himself himself up at the slightest inconvenience, but at least he can actually get dubs though, so he's not washed like a certain someone. Nonetheless, Saitama saved Genos the trouble by slapping Mosquito Girl's cheeks into next week. And from that day forward, Genos never stopped glazing the Caped Baldy. That's why, following the Monster Association War, he spent 4 hours yapping away about what Saitama did against Cosmic Fear Garou. But regardless, it was their first training session that really opened Genos' eyes that perhaps he's not built for this. As when Saitama threw one serious punch, the air pressure alone was enough for Genos to realize that Saitama was him. Since then though, their relationship has evolved into something far deeper than just master and student. Genos trusts Saitama with every fiber of his being, and Saitama, despite his bluntness, cares for Genos more than anyone else. He hates seeing him tear his body apart after every single battle. He hates how quickly Genos throws himself into danger, and he especially hates seeing him driven by revenge. Which is exactly why, when Garou kills Genos, Saitama snapped, unlocking a level of power capable of defeating a god-level threat with just one hand, as in the other, he held onto all that remained of his best friend, Genos' core. And this care and love is exactly what Genos needs. Even during the Monster Association War, Saitama congratulates him for finally not killing himself, explaining that whilst he may feel weak, his heart has grown stronger, and that is the most important thing. That being said, Genos isn't actually weak. In fact, thanks to all the time he's spent admiring Saitama, he's finally reached the same level as him from back when they first sparred. When you compare the aftermath of their second training session side by side, Genos and Saitama cause roughly the same destruction as each other. The only difference is that Saitama himself is now also stronger, which makes Genos believe that he's not improved, which only adds to his depression. You got Saitama who's depressed because he's too strong, and then you've got Genos who's depressed because he's not strong enough. Because while Saitama pulled his punch because he knew Genos would have died, this time around Genos pulled his because he knew that it wouldn't have even had an effect on the Caped Baldy. Soon though, in the webcomic, we will hopefully see what a full potential Genos will look like, albeit in a heartbreaking way. You see, in chapter 140 of the webcomic, Saitama worries that Genos might lose himself, either by becoming a revenge-driven demon, or by completely breaking during his pursuit of the cyborg that destroyed his family. But Dr. Kusuno makes it clear that that would have happened before now, had it not been for Saitama's influence on helping him retain what makes him human. The sad part about it all though, is that Dr. Kusuno is a lying piece of shit. He manufactured that hate into Genos from the very beginning. There is no mad cyborg that slaughtered his family and village. Genos is a cyborg that has been manipulated by Dr. Kusuno from the very beginning to be groomed into fighting for what he perceives to be justice, which is why he wants to kill Metal Knight, believing that he was the one responsible for his family's demise. However, now that the truth is out and that he's just Kusuno's pawn, it's only a matter of time before he's forced to fight against Saitama to the death, just like Drive Knight did, another one of Kusuno's tools. But there is a happy ending here, and that's the respect that Genos and Saitama truly have for each other deep down. You see, Saitama tried to get Drive Knight, despite being an AI, to find his own will to live, and I'm sure that he will do the same for Genos when the time comes, because even after losing half his brain, the thing anchoring the demon cyborg to reality will always be the Caped Baldy. And when Genos finally does find his humanity and his own will to live beyond what Kusuno has built him to believe and the constant glazing of Saitama, then he will finally reach his peak potential. Not via more upgrades or becoming more of a cyborg, but by becoming human. It's the same lesson that King taught Saitama all over again. But it's not just crazy strong S-class level heroes having their outlook on life changed by the Caped Baldy, bringing me onto Forte, Chain and Toad, and Butterfly DX. At first, they had no respect for Saitama and actually viewed him as a total bum. But then they saw what he did against Tatsumaki and everything changed forever. They decided to actually pet sit for Saitama to get on his good side. But when the robot army invaded in the webcomic, the fear they had for Saitama turned into hope. They hoped that Saitama could be the bridge that combined the Hero Association and the Neo-Heroes in order to save the world. But that's not all. When all hope seemed lost, Forte and Co fought back against the robots. They took that unbreakable human spirit that had molded Saitama and applied it to themselves. They believed that the human body was capable of doing more and was able to save many lives by keeping the robots from reaching the evacuees inside the Hero Association safe house. But of course, it wasn't just them who began to understand what Saitama was truly capable of after the fight against Tatsumaki. There was her as well. Ever since she was taken as a child and sold by her own parents to Tsukiyomi, where she was locked in a cell and experimented on, Tatsumaki has had a warped worldview. But thankfully, Blast came to her rescue and delivered the defining message of her life. Do not expect help from others. Do not expect help from others. Thus, she grew up believing strength was the only way to protect the people you love, and that if she ever became weak again, her sister Fubuki would suffer the same fate she did. But then Saitama showed up. At first he was beneath her, not worth the tornado of terror's respect. She even misinterprets him as some random Fubuki underling, or worse, a nuisance getting in her way. Saitama meanwhile treats her like some annoying older brother dealing with a stubborn kid, like he always has. Their scrap even starts with him holding her like a child in need of saving. However, for Saitama, this one interaction activates her neurons. It's a feeling that she's never felt before, prompting Tatsumaki to call him a pervert out of embarrassment. But what's important is that she's never fought someone who can physically keep up with her like this before. She literally watches as bro survives shit that would kill literally anyone else, which absolutely shocks her. But that shock soon turns into respect, because when Saitama eventually grows tired of her reckless destruction and pulls her aside, he explains that she takes relationships too lightly and criticizes her harsh control over Fubuki, and that cuts deep. It's the exact opposite of what Blast told her. Thus, Tatsumaki just can't compute it. However, whilst she pauses to think back to the man that she looks up to the most, the bright light of Blast is soon replaced by the shiny bald head of Saitama, symbolizing that her respect for him has now in fact matched that of the #1 hero in the world. She can't believe that somebody stronger than her still sees her as an equal, and so for the first time ever, actually listens to what Saitama has to say. And so she does the unthinkable. She asks them to do it again sometime, which is as close as you're ever gonna get to being asked on a second date by Tatsumaki. I mean, just look at this, bro even had her blushing.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
But of course, Tatsumaki is just one half of the legendary psychic sisters. Fubuki, though, was one of the earliest characters to ever realize that Saitama was special. When we first meet her, she is the picture of dominance in the B class, leading two of the biggest, best, fan favorite factions in the Hero Association. Sorry. One. She leads one. The Blizzard Group. But as soon as Saitama becomes a B-class hero, she personally visits his apartment to try and recruit him. After all, as a newcomer, he must have known who Fubuki was, as anyone in their right mind would jump at the chance to join her, right? Yeah, not Saitama. This leaves Fubuki flabbergasted. She cannot process a man who doesn't fear her, respects her status, or even pretend to be impressed by her presence. She even tries to attack the Caped Baldy to make him understand her strength, but I mean, sure, go on, I guess. Nonetheless, when Genos fires a massive blast at speed of sound Sonic, Saitama shields Fubuki from the explosion. And despite the shockwave obliterating literally everything around them, he doesn't even flinch. And that is the moment she begins to understand why he doesn't fear her. Then she witnesses his true greatness, Saitama versus Sonic. As if seeing a man defeat someone with sidesteps alone wasn't weird enough, back at Saitama's apartment, Fubuki sees King just casually chilling there. Therefore, if the strongest man alive views Saitama as his equal, then Fubuki can only view the Caped Baldy with the utmost respect. What's more though is that this encounter actually inspires her. You see, Fubuki had long lived in Tatsumaki's shadow, but now felt a spark of hope. Maybe she didn't need to be the second best forever. Maybe she could grow and evolve into someone stronger, with Saitama being the catalyst for that growth. But this inspiration soon begins to turn into a bit of an obsession, one that makes her dream of nothing more than Saitama joining the Blizzard group, all because she makes her feel safe. He stops her insecurities from eating her alive. And despite Saitama viewing Fubuki as just an acquaintance, which absolutely breaks her heart by the way, Fubuki is one of the first people to publicly recognize Saitama as someone that has ascended, someone that has evolved past what it means to be a normal human being. Thus, her heart was forever changed when Saitama not only changed her outlook on Tatsumaki, but when he also stepped in to change hers. Thus, Fubuki tries to disband the Blizzard group. However, as Tatsumaki points out, the rest of them don't seem to agree with her decision. Therefore, Fubuki challenges all of her old friends to a fight, claiming that if they can't beat her, then they would never defeat her sister. But when Tatsumaki tries to intervene, it is Saitama who steps in, using his own experience to explain that even he couldn't beat a wolf-level threat before his training. He was a total loser before, but look at him now. He is a total Chad, gaining respect from two of the baddest women in all of One Punch Man. And so even if the Blizzard group was weak now, there's still no telling what their limit is. Now I ain't gonna lie, this next one I think is personally a bit of a stretch when it comes to if you respect Saitama, so I'll keep it quick. But in the manga version of the story, they have begun working much closer together on the God missions, so I'm of course talking about Flashy Flash. Listen, the Monster Association raid was not a good day for our boy. He was humbled left, right and center by Platinum Sperm, Garou and of course Saitama. But instead of being left with no choice but to give the Baldy a round of applause for his insane strength, Flashy Flash instead believed that he could teach him. Oh? Yeah, this is what I mean about there still being a little lack of respect there, I think. Even when Saitama humbled him again in training, Flashy Flash still believes that Saitama is actually his student. Unlike this next guy, who retired from hero work, putting his faith in the next generation like Saitama. Bang. Because who can blame him when he was the second hero in the entire series to truly witness the insane scale of Saitama's strength? And it happened during one of the most iconic scenes in Season 1. Fun fact, the only season of the One Punch Man anime. Okay, Season 2 wasn't that bad, but
I mean, it's alright, like.
Nonetheless, a 200-meter wide meteor classified as a dragon-level threat was barreling towards Z City, ready to wipe it off the map. Because of this, the Hero Association put out an emergency alert calling every single S-class hero within range. But only 3 made it in time: Genos, Metal Knight and Bang. And well, despite doing all they can, it was looking like a fat L. And well, even Bang couldn't reach the meteor. But that's when he turned, saw a random bald dude or a farming behind him and asked who he was. Saitama just replied, "I'm a hero," then launched himself into the sky with so much force the entire building shook, and then Bang was flawed. This is a man who has lived for nearly a century, yet even he had never seen strength like this. But bro didn't keep this discovery to himself either. Later, he hinted at Saitama's existence to Atomic Samurai, and this was a big deal because Atomic Samurai is ego incarnate, the guy who only respects people stronger than him. Yet, Bang confidently told him that a hero existed who could surpass all of his students and himself. This level of awe from someone who has spent his entire life refining himself, training, mastering technique after technique to understand the flow of power is insane. Thus, as time goes on, their friendship becomes more genuine. Bang frequently invites Saitama to cookouts, hangouts, and even training sessions, all because he genuinely enjoys his company. But of course, if Bang retired from hero work, then somebody's gonna have to replace him in the S-class, right? And who is that exactly? Well, his top student, of course, the hero hunter Garou. His relationship with Saitama is strange. It starts as a gag, and by the end of it, they are wiping entire solar systems out of existence. But more importantly, nobody has perhaps been affected by Saitama quite as deeply as Garou, which is wild when you consider that Saitama simply mistook Garou as a random bozo and karate chopped him so hard that he was factory reset. But it's actually this moment that alters the course of history forever for Garou, even though he doesn't remember who hit him. Likewise, the second time when Bro tries to jump King only to get one shot by the Caped Baldy again. Saitama didn't even know that he had the most wanted criminal on strings. In fact, if he did, he'd low-key be pretty disappointed, as he hopes that the hero hunter will finally give him an entertaining fight. But this humiliation continued in their third encounter, where Garou tried to dine and dash from a restaurant. You see, Garou does a play on words here of ikidakimasu, which is said before you eat your meal, whilst Saitama does a play on words for gochisusuma, which is said after you eat. Furthermore, Saitama puts the bill onto Fubuki and runs out without paying for his food as he lost his wallet, and so straight away you start to see the parallels that these two are actually two sides of the same coin. But for Garou, Saitama is the immovable object in his way from achieving absolute evil. But the Baldy doesn't even realize it, because when they finally prepare for their big final showdown, Saitama doesn't even recognize Garou. What he does recognize though is that Garou's true calling in life is to be a hero. And that is proven during their fight, where Garou just keeps accidentally saving more and more civilians. And so despite constantly monsterizing more and more, he had to hold that smoke and accept that his mission to become absolute evil will always fail when a hero like Saitama exists. However, God of all people smelt this and used that insecurity to his advantage, trying to lure Garou into becoming his avatar. And despite the hero hunter seeing through his lies, he still touched God's hand, thus gained just a fraction of his power. But even that fraction was enough to break One Punch Man's power scaling for good. And it all begins with Genos' death. The now cosmic fear Garou rips out his core and sends Saitama into an instant spiral of depression. Even still, Garou is able to match and even mimic Saitama's serious moves. In spite of this though, it's still not enough. The two are teleported off Earth and end up on Io, one of Jupiter's moons. There, Garou witnesses Saitama straight up rip the moon apart, even remove Jupiter's gaseous layer with a simple sneeze. Thus, eventually, Garou realizes the truth. He will never be able to match Saitama. He is the embodiment of unfairness. And so, fear begins to form, and Garou realizes he's failed. But like the hero that he was destined to be, he does one last thing to fix it all. He bestows upon Saitama the power of God himself, respecting that the Caped Baldy is the only one that can mimic the power of God without being corrupted by it, thus allowing him to rewind time to the moment Garou became absolute evil, putting an end to things before it was too late. And even this version of Garou, after taking the L, realized that Saitama is the one hero who actually lives up to the ideal that Garou dreamed of, a man who saves others without ego, corruption, fame, or fortune. And that's why Garou agrees to become a hero himself, secretly joining the S-Class behind the scenes, asking Bang if he could even get a training session lined up with the Caped Baldy, hoping he could then unlock the same level of power he did as a monster, and this time use it for good as a hero and defeat God. That being said, Garou wasn't the first man to realize that Saitama had broken his limiter and become the fist that turned against God, as that title would actually belong to Dr. Genus. In fact, Dr. Genus took a look at Saitama's true power and practically gave up his entire life's work knowing that a random ass bald dude beat him to his end goal naturally. Dr. Genus then tried explaining this to Zombieman, warning him that Saitama is far beyond anything he could ever imagine, but Zombieman just thought bro was trolling. For someone like Zombieman, who is practically invincible due to his regeneration, the idea that someone can just surpass him to such a degree feels untrue, until he saw that it wasn't, bringing me onto the Garou fight in the webcomic. You see, it was there that he saw the Caped Baldy's serious table flip. This is exactly why Zombieman dragged himself back to Dr. Genus and begged the scientist to make him as strong as Saitama, to remove his limiter. Truth be told though, it was impossible. That being said, Genus did have something interesting enough to show Zombieman, where even now he is still locking in, inspired by the limitless power of Saitama. Whilst we're on the topic of the webcomic actually, let's talk about the son of Blast himself, Blue. Now, of course, that title itself comes with the suffocating weight of that legacy. The world expects him to become the second Blast. Blue, on the other hand, aspires to build his own name, to become a true hero. That's why he spearheaded the Neo-Heroes in an attempt to build a new age of justice, one that could succeed even where the Hero Association failed. Because of this mindset, Blue becomes directly involved with Saitama the moment Amai Mask transforms into a monster and is dragged to safety by the Caped Baldy. You see, it's there that Blue intercepts him at full speed, prepared to use his one-time limiter removal weapon in his battlesuit, but is stopped by Genos. Nonetheless, from that day forward, Blue couldn't help wonder who Saitama really is and what his goal was supposed to be as a hero. That feeling only intensifies though when Blue later visits the Hero Association headquarters, hoping to propose an alliance between them and the Neo. But before Bro can even get a word in, he is completely drowned out by the protests of the Hero Names Victims Association. As the name suggests, they are a group of low-rank heroes who've been given unfortunate hero names, to say the least. And their de facto leader just so happens to be none other than Saitama. Why? Well, because they all bore witness to how broken he really is. They watched as the Caped Baldy one-shot the dragon-level machine god Mirror, who was so strong he had multiple heroes on strings. Bro was an absolute menace, yet Saitama got so mad when he referred to him as the Caped Baldy that he one-shot him in one of the funniest moments in the entire series. His Caped Baldy. However, it wasn't just the Hero Names Victims Association who saw that and began to look up to Saitama, as Blue was also watching that day. He even compared him to his father, wondering if Saitama intends to operate as a kind of modern myth from the shadows, just like Blast. And so when Blue fails to get in touch with the Hero Association directly, he begins to wonder which of the S-Class heroes would be the best spokesperson on his behalf. Tatsumaki? King? No. Of course not. The best hero of them all isn't even an S-Class, it is Saitama. In fact, he holds Saitama's power in such high regard that when the Neo-Heroes are praised for their advanced weaponry, Blue finds himself reminding people that the Hero Association have their own equivalents, such as the S-Class, but also others like Saitama. And I think this eye-opening understanding that someone like Saitama is out there helps spur Blue on when things get tough. You remember how I mentioned that his battlesuit has a limiter off mode, right? Which is of course their way of manufacturing a way to momentarily remove its limits to reach an insane level of power. This, however, runs the risk of overheating and losing control. It is essentially the exact same risk as removing a person's real limiter, where it can make them a crazy monster. Thus, seeing someone like Saitama who's managed to do this naturally means that even when the Neo-Heroes beg Blue to conserve his strength and return to base during the catastrophic robot invasion, he doesn't listen. He refuses to abandon civilians whilst their lives are on the line. That being said, on his way to the scene of the destruction, he literally flies straight into Saitama, who on impact destroys Blue's battlesuit. In spite of this, he tries convincing the Baldy to let him fight side by side, but it's no use. Saitama simply tells him to evacuate with the others. What Blue didn't realize though is that in that moment, Saitama accidentally saved his life. You see, the Neo-Heroes CEO, Mr. Fuzzy, had actually created the company to take over the world by fitting the Neo battlesuits to attach to the hero's nervous system, meaning that when the time was right, they would all turn into his cyborg puppets. Thus, with Saitama destroying Blue's suit, it meant that Blue's name wouldn't be tarnished by committing atrocities under Mr. Fuzzy's control, meaning that he still had a future to become the hero he aspired to be. However, this battlesuit downside, I guess you could say, had to be learned the hard way for Suiryu. But that being said when we first meet him, Suiryu is the total opposite of Saitama. He believes himself to be so strong that no fight can entertain him, just like the Baldy. But whilst the Baldy is a hero for fun, Suiryu is just for vibes, really. He just wants an easy life where he can flex his strength as a natural talent and riz baddies. That simple. Thus, he actually grew up to hate heroes. He saw them as nothing but fame-hungry wastes of time that are a net negative on society. But everything changed the moment Geketsu literally beat up Suiryu so bad it ultimately changed how he saw life forever. As that's when Saitama showed up. Suiryu witnessed real heroism for the first time in his life, and from that day forward began to live life differently. That's why later on, Suiryu joins the Neo Heroes. But of course, with that battlesuit came a loss of his own autonomy. But of course, as I already said, he had Mumen Rider to thank for freeing him from the chaos he was causing. And so now, not only has Saitama inspired Suiryu into hero work, he's now had Mumen Rider inspire him to do, as he puts, real hero work. I mean, talk about learning from two of the absolute goats of heroism. And well, his first task is to face 4 super powerful Machine God series members all at once. In spite of this, the Caped Baldy beats him to the punch, quite literally. You see, he believes that Saitama is actually his sister Suiko's boyfriend, but after seeing his true strength in the webcomic, which by the way was actually the first time, not the super fight tournament like the manga, then I don't think Suiryu will have any trouble with Saitama smashing his sister. Because for a moment, he thinks he can fight side by side with the Caped Baldy before then realizing he doesn't have to. Suiryu actually puts faith in Saitama to be the one to save the Hero Association, which is actually a huge display of respect. Because at the Hero Association is actually Suryu's sister Suiko. That's right, he literally put his own family in the hands of Saitama. He has that much trust. And I mean, he's right to, as Suiko even tells her brother face to face that Saitama mogs him in power level. In spite of this, Suiko herself ends up joining the Hero Association, with her goal being to become an S-class hero one day, making a name for herself as the heir to the legendary Void Fist style. Nonetheless, after casually obliterating a training robot, she's handed the A-class rank, which she kind of takes as a personal insult. But the moment 5 dragon level monsters appear across multiple cities, Suiko rushes out to prove herself, which is when she faces off against Machine God Mirror, doing just 0.4% damage despite using her strongest attacks. But of course, my goat Saitama was able to step in and do the remaining 99.6% damage plus a bit more on top as a tip. Seeing this, Suiko literally pinches her own cheek to check whether she's hallucinating or not. And so that was the moment she realized that he was unlike any other human, opting to want to be part of the same hero association as him, even rejecting the chance to join her brother at the Neo Heroes. Now, if you love One Punch Man as much as me, then you're probably going to enjoy this video on your screen right now. So I'd highly recommend you go and click it. What do you still do? Just click it.